Michael Jackson, Kendall Jenner, Rita Ora, Bella Hadid. Which one of those was the most fun to protect? Private security.
Yep.
Actor.
Yep.
Model.
Kind of.
Bodyguard. Business person. Simon Newton, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to the conversation.
I was in the military before. I did Iraq War 2003. They said, would you go out to Morocco to do a film with Matt Damon?
Are you a model?
No.
Michael Jackson, Rita Ora, Kendall Jenner. These are some of the individuals that my next podcast guest, Simon Newton, worked for and protected. He used to be in the military. He was a close protection individual, and now he's a business person, also becoming an actor. Be happy, never content, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Right, welcome back to the podcast, Steve Sully's Study, here at the Gallery Woodbury House over in Mayfair. The man I've got in front of me, let me just read this out to you. Private security.
Yep.
Actor.
Yep.
Model.
Kind of.
Bodyguard. Business person. I mean, like when you say one of those titles or one of those descriptions about someone's career, it's a big thing, right? And it's certainly, as a man, it's like a badge of honor to have one of them, and you've got multiple badges, and some could say that is basically describing the real life James Bond. So anyway, long introduction. Simon Newton, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. So where do we begin? I mean, I'm going to read this little list. Michael Jackson, Kendall Jenner, Rita Ora, Bella Hadid. Which one of those was the most fun to protect?
Most fun for me was probably Bella, but then Bella was the one I probably spent the most time with. So we had the opportunity to go and do more things, I guess. Someone like Michael Jackson, you're not going to have a lot of fun. It's quite a busy job. Not because of him, he's fine, but because of just his crowd. All his followers and everything else he had at the time. Weren't even called followers then, actually, because he didn't have that sort of thing around then. But his fan base, it was full on all the time. But with the others, you could relax sometimes. Yeah.
So I imagine, like all things in business, whether it's doing podcasts, whether it's building a company, property portfolio, or protecting high-profile individuals, you kind of build up to it. So you don't really. I imagine you don't jump into the deep end. How do you go about thinking or protecting someone like Michael Jackson?
It's a good question, because there isn't really any set way, and I think when I first sort of decided to do the private security work, I never thought I'd be looking after Michael Jackson. I never thought that I want to be a bodyguard and look after Michael Jackson. So there isn't any, in all of these people, there isn't any one set route. You get booked by other security companies, you get booked by model agencies, by film production companies, by record labels, or you might get booked by PAs, managers, or by the person themselves. So there's so many different routes you can get into to be able to be booked by these people.
Yeah.
It's to say you do this and this, it isn't really a set route.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, all of these people I just mentioned here is only a snippet of the type of individuals that you've actually worked alongside or for. And I mean, these are high profile people, very, very high profile. I mean, once upon a time when Michael Jackson was alive, was probably the most successful pop artist in the world, and probably the most famous person. I mean, probably more famous than the Queen or the current King. Dealing with these type of personalities, I mean, that must come with its own kind of problems and hurdles and challenges in itself, Simon.
Michael Jackson was my first bodyguard job in London. I've been working in the Middle East a long time before that, as a close protection officer, but in London, Michael Jackson was my first one. So for my first celebrity as well. So it was quite I wouldn't say it was an eye-opener. I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, and at the time I didn't really appreciate the job. I was working in Afghanistan for the Foreign Commonwealth Office at the time, and it just so happened that his visit was at the same time I was home on leave, and I took the job, and I kind of half wanted to be there, half didn't, because I was on leave. I didn't really want to work, but then obviously, you know, I did the job, and it was an eye opener. But for me, that was my first. My first job was with Michael Jackson in London, and I mean, for the first job, it's quite. Can be a tricky one, let's put it like that. It's a lot different to how we used to operate in the Middle East.
I mean, like people like the Michael Jacksons, or there's other pop stars out there today which have got not just a fan base and a following, but a kind of cult kind of group that will follow them off the face of the earth if they ask them to. I mean, they are really that dedicated and that passionate. And sometimes that must come with a bit of threat, because these people are trying to get so close to their idol, or they're someone that they admire, like a Michael Jackson or a Ronaldo or a Messi or somebody like that they can actually put themselves and your client in danger. Did you ever perhaps come across like any scenarios where your client, like Michael Jackson or like a Kendall Jenner, was in serious danger because of the fans? Yeah, so not a direct threat from an individual, but yeah, from fans. I mean, especially Jackson. He did have people following himself all around the world. So every country he would go to, normally the first 1 or 2 lines of his fans, which are outside the hotel, they were in Japan with him a week before. They were in, you know, America somewhere, and then they were in Canada, and then they were in Brazil with him. Do you know what I mean? Wherever he used to go. So they were diehard fans. We had 5 or 6 taxis, which were fans put on meters, black cabs, just so they could jump in at any time. And the meter was running all day, but just so they sat there and waited for him to follow us. So, I mean, it was with him. It's not so much with the others. Crowd's always a problem with any celebrity, you know, any A-lister. But with Jackson, we had 5 people on the job, which, to be honest with you, we probably could have done with a couple more. All the other people, I've always worked on my own. It's the only job I've done with extra people. But crowd's always a problem, but definitely with Jackson, yeah. I mean, even in New York, when one of the Beatles who was shot by one of the fans by Central Park there, forgot actually which one it is now, but I mean, it just shows you how extreme some of these fans can be. I mean, you assume a fan loves you and adores you, but that love and that affection, because they can't have the person, for example, they can suddenly turn violent and end up murdering someone. Did that ever go through your mind?
Not really. I mean, you got to be aware that those sort of situations can happen. I think most A-list celebrities at one stage or another have a stalker. Now, whether that's just online or, you know, physical, they normally have a stalker. And sometimes, if you get stalkers in a particular country, they don't tend to follow them around the world, but some will. Some diehard ones will. So if you're aware, you're normally made aware if there is a stalker active at a certain period of time. You just have to bear it in mind. You can't really sort of worry about it too much, otherwise you turn into sort of not wanting to go out at all. Yeah.
Someone like a Kendall Jenner, obviously very, very famous for being on TV and everything else. Is Kendall Jenner exactly how she is in real life as she is on TV?
I'll be honest, I haven't actually seen her on TV. I don't really watch TV. The first time I ever looked after Kendall, I had to Google to see who she was.
And what was her fan sort of following like?
Well, she was younger then, obviously, because it's quite a few years ago now. So it was a younger crowd. But I mean, for her as a girl, she was just a young girl. Yeah, she's just a very successful young girl. Yeah. I didn't see anything particularly different. But to compare it to the TV show, for instance, I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know.
And Rita Ora, I mean, she's a household name, not just in the UK but around the world. I believe she was signed at a young age by Jay-Z, who's obviously a very, very successful artist himself and a billionaire. And she's clearly got a huge fan base globally. What was the challenges in looking after Rita Ora? Rita
was the same in terms of crowd. Not everywhere we went, depended where we went. She was busy. Whenever I wasn't with Rita Ora every single day. It was only when she needed it. So a lot of these people, they don't have it all the time. Jackson's obviously a different story, but majority, they only have it when it's needed. and it's not always needed. So, but with Rita, I was always very busy. I was out in Europe with Rita, Milan Fashion Week we did, and was always going up and down the UK where she was singing. So she was a very busy, very active artist.
Yeah. You mentioned about Jackson being different, and that's probably because of, well, I think the world has shifted, right? I think back then there wasn't social media, really, and I think being famous back then is slightly different to being famous today. So you mentioned that you alluded to the fact that he was a lot more 24/7 with security. Therefore, it gives me the assumption that you probably may have got to know him a bit more personally. Is that correct?
Not really. Only reason because the amount of people he has around him. You know, there was 5 security, and then you've got agents, nannies. You know, all the people in between: chauffeurs, hair, makeup, chauffeurs, drivers, clothing people. You know, wardrobe. So I've never worked with someone where he's had so many people around him all the time. We did talk to him, and I spoke to him a few occasions, and we had a chat about what maybe he was going to be doing that day, very, very briefly. But compared to the others, probably I spoke to him the least.
Okay. What I was getting to is when that public announcement was made that Michael Jackson had died, and I think it was just before This Is It tour, when he was going to tour the UK, and this was going to be his final act and final send-off.
Yeah.
How did you respond, Simon, when you heard that Michael Jackson had died?
I wasn't surprised. Yeah, right. I wasn't surprised because I personally, from when I was with him in 2006, he wasn't in very great health then. I just didn't see how. What was it? 2010 was it? Can't remember now. Something like that. But he was suddenly going to do all these tours, and I think I even doubled the tours as well at one stage halfway through selling the tickets. And I just remember thinking, how on earth is he ever going to do that, you know?
And when you say he wasn't in good health, is that because the way he was looking, the way he was sounding, his body language? What was a telltale sign that he wasn't looking?
His voice. I think he couldn't. I took him to the World Music Awards, and he was there, and he had a tribute group doing one of his songs. And obviously everyone was well disappointed because they'd all gone along thinking they're going to see Michael Jackson, which they did, but they didn't see him sing. It's probably the first time that Michael Jackson's ever been to an event and a Michael Jackson doubles come on and sung his... do you know what I mean? So everyone was a bit disappointed. So I knew then that things weren't quite right because of the performer that he was. I would imagine it had been very hard for him to let that happen. So yeah, I think it's sort of as far back as then. I think things maybe started to go, you know, sort of a bit different for him.
In my personal opinion on him, even though I never ever got to meet him, was phenomenal performer. Very, very talented, but that talent was harnessed by him and his family by working on it day in, day out, and at some points probably his father pushing him to the absolute limit. Many argue that he probably lost out a lot of his childhood, and then some people or some groups or the media maybe class him as a bit strange and a little bit, I don't know, childlike, because he didn't have a childhood and therefore he was always trying to live that inadvertently via other people and stuff.
Yeah.
You getting to know him a little bit, definitely more so than the general public, including me. Again, I think he was phenomenal. I think it was really important for pop and for music and for the culture. I think without him, there isn't the artist that we know today in their form. I'm not saying the artist today wouldn't be successful, but maybe wouldn't have the slight edge that Michael Jackson may have given them indirectly or directly or whatever. But you do see frequently, like, you know, he was a bit of a strange character, like maybe behind the scenes. Was he strange, or was he actually a normal human being?
I don't know. I try not to use the word strange sometimes because I think each to their own. Do you know what I mean? He certainly didn't do anything where you sort of went, well, what's he doing? It wasn't like that. But he was he was a very quiet, subdued person, really. I remember the fans always used to want to give him presents, so we used to take a few off and to take in for him. Couldn't take him all, was too many. But and I remember once he opened up a book. Anyway, he was so excited about this book, and you know, it was great. And I thought, blimey, it must be a good book, that. And I looked at it; it was a book of plain paper. And I just thought, I'd appreciate my fans giving me something, but you can't go, oh wow, looking through plain pieces of paper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and even the cover, it's plain blue cover. It weren't like because what some of the fans used to do, they used to put pictures on the front of the books because they want to try and be recognised by him as much as possible. So a lot of them did that. But this particular one, it was just a blue book with lined. I think it was just plain lined paper inside, and I just thought,
I don't know what's a little bit more strange with that, like his reaction or the person actually giving it to him.
Well, I know. Well, you could argue like tracks like.
Yeah, that is a bit odd. And just, I mean, look, my mum went to see him in concert and she absolutely adores his, and I think his music today is absolutely timeless. I think in 50 years, 100 years time, our children's children are going to be rocking still to his music, and even rap and any of the drill and grime and stuff which is coming through. There is hints and moments in those tunes which are definitely they're purported from Michael Jackson's music.
They're doing a show in the West End next year.
Are they?
Yeah, I don't know how long it's on for, but they're doing a show with Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
show.
that would be very cool. The money that he had, obviously we know about his fame and his stardom because everywhere he went. I mean, there was even I think he shut down Harrods, or maybe went there of an evening so he could shop privately on his own without being disturbed. And you can actually imagine that. Did you ever see the amount of, was there a moment where you thought, Jesus, this guy's got serious amount of money? Was there any a moment where you thought Michael Jackson has got far too much money than he knows what to do with?
No, I'll tell you for why. That wouldn't have cost him anything. Someone like how, we shut down Topshop Oxford Street back in the day when it was open, because he got an outfit in there, and we went down there at midnight. So it got all opened up, especially, and anyone who was left got turfed out. But the store, you imagine having Michael Jackson, I mean, even more so now, but you imagine having him turning up here to your gallery, you think of the exposure your gallery is going to get, you wouldn't feel like you need to, sort of want money from him to turn up, or you might even give him a piece of art, because it's Michael Jackson. So a lot of those things, they don't cost people anything. Now, not to say he didn't have a lot of money, of course he must have done, I don't know what he would have had, but for things like closing Harrods, and that most of the time he wouldn't have had to pay, like if you and me wanted to close Harrods, we probably could as well, if we gave him 10 million for half an hour or something stupid, do you know what I mean? But people like that, they tend to accommodate for free, really.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so before you got into close protection, my understanding is that you were in the military. 2006, actually, close protection officer with the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and you went to Afghanistan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that how you started your kind of close protection military background, or is there a story before that?
No, so I was in the military before. I did Iraq War 2003.
And what was your role there? Did I was see you a mechanic?
No, I was in the Royal Signals.
Okay.
And when I was out there, a friend of mine who used to be in the army had left, and he'd gone back out there. It's just after the war phase and the rebuild, sort of the Iraqi reconstruction phase was starting. And he got a job with one of the sort of first private security companies to work back out in Iraq. And I bumped into him at Basra Air Station in southern Iraq. And he said to me, "Oh, what are you doing out here?" I said, "I'm with the army." He said, "What are you doing in the army? You want to come and do this job?" And he told me about it. Obviously, the money was a lot better and conditions and everything else. And he done me a CV, sent it to an office in London here. Mm-hmm. And they kind of offered me a job, but realised I was still in the military, so they can't use me while I'm still in the military. And then I left subsequently, which is why I didn't do very long in the military. If it weren't for that job, I would have stayed in. I used to like it. And I went back out to Iraq about a month after leaving, and I was working as a private security contractor in Iraq. So I did 3 years there, and then I went to the Foreign Commonwealth Office after and did the 2 years in Afghanistan.
Okay.
That's how my security bodyguard thing started. The progression to celebrities and having a company in London and all the rest of it, that kind of happened after my time of working out in the Middle East.
We were just talking, right, before we kicked off the interview, and I said I got a bit of a fascination with like the military, RAF. I mean, I live near an airport called Biggin Hill, and when I was a kid, there used to be always, every single year, the air show. Harrier jump jets, typhoons. Well, typhoons are now tornadoes, Tomcats. I mean, I'm into all the big jets and stuff. There's just I don't know why, like a weird like obsession with them. There's a connection there. And now I go to Royal Air Tattoo, and I just love it, you know. And then I start looking at all different kind of military things that are affiliated to it. And I've watched programs on like snipers, and I said American Sniper's one of my favourite films, Bradley Cooper, etc. And over time, that you actually realise that certain elements that you affiliate with, like violence, murder, guns, etc., actually that is a small part of it, but the bigger part of it is there's other agendas. But I can imagine, like with the Bodyguard and close protection, a big part of it is not to get into the fights because you haven't done your job right, and it's about diffusing those scenarios before it happens. But when you're in a war zone like Iraq, there's no ifs or buts. It's a war zone. You're there to kill or to be killed. How did that kind of shape your kind of headspace when you were there?
Well, obviously in countries like that we carry firearms for starters, and there's obviously a lot more of us on the team. I think there's 12-man teams we were running roughly in Afghanistan and slightly less in Iraq. But one thing it did do me very well was whatever I was going to do after those two jobs probably wasn't ever going to be as rough, if you like. So certainly working in Europe and particularly in London back then, you know, I didn't really worry about too much, to be honest. It made the job a bit easier for me. Yeah.
I saw here 2009 British military crude oil tankers. You were protecting, I think, some of the individuals affiliated with those type of companies. And funny enough, I used to work for a sales company many years ago, and one of the clients I ended up getting on board was a guy that had a security company. He used to protect people that used to work on the oil lines, I think in like Nigeria and places like that. And he said I used to pick his brain all the time about it. He said we used to protect sometimes the people there by ramming some of the so-called kidnappers with the cars, because they would just steam up the engineers to try and kidnap them and hold them for ransom. And what we used to do is basically run them over. Was it as kind of brutal and as kind of raw as that at some point, Simon?
It was a bit different for me because we was protecting LPG and oil tankers predominantly. So we used to put same sort of thing, but we was protecting the vessel from being kidnapped, if you like, with all its
pirated.
Basically pirates, with all its crew and everything with it. So we was at sea a lot. We used to do all sorts of, my main ones were LPG and oil tankers, but we used to do car transporters and survey ships, and there's all sorts of different things, whatever needed. It all depended on what part of the world was you in. Got coast of Somalia, Oman to Egypt used to be quite a favourite one. Anything we went through a place called the Bab el-Mandeb, which is a short channel that lets you cut past Egypt and miss a huge part of going round. So if you don't use that, you've got to put another 3 or 4 days on your trip in a vessel. So a lot of companies, obviously because of cost and fuel and everything else, they wanted to use that. But anytime you used that, because the channel come in so great, they used to come out from Somalia and used to attack you quite easily. And they knew that there was a ship every probably 10-15 minutes would pass through there.
Wow.
So if they, to start with, we weren't armed, but then we become armed. If we were armed, they'd normally just wait for the next one because, you know, they just knew that they didn't need the hassle of it.
Yeah. So in these type of environments, was there any time that you saw something really, really scary and quite controversial?
Not so much on the ships, but certainly Iraq and Afghanistan, you see it all the time. Yeah.
What's the worst thing you saw?
I mean, what's worse? I don't know. Probably the worst thing you could think of seeing, to be honest. Is not much.
Any details?
So you see a lot of burning bodies. You see a lot of, you know, aftermath from bombs. Luckily enough, I, you know, missed things by a few seconds sometimes, maybe a few minutes. Yeah, you see a lot of dead bodies. You get used to seeing dead bodies.
You've probably been asked this multiple times, but being 45?
Yeah.
Do you ever reflect and think, maybe some of my emotions and some of my headspace has been affected because of what I've witnessed?
I'd say no, personally. If you ask my girlfriend, she might say different. But even when I was younger, when I was a child and that, things never sort of got to me that much. And I think that's helped me now for considering the job or the work I've done in the past. I don't really suffer from anything now. PTSD and bad dreams, and the only time I ever think about anything that I've done back in the past is if something reminds me of it, and could be something like a film, or I bump into one of the lads maybe I worked with that time ago, or it's all nice things. I don't see a dead body in a war movie and think, and it takes you back to a place I don't want to be. I don't get anything like that, so I'm quite lucky.
Okay.
But I don't believe I was born like that, but I think that started at an early age for whatever reason.
Yeah. Guys, I wanted to hop on here to once again thank the sponsors of this week's podcast, iSecure Vehicles. When we were searching around for sponsors for the channel, we honestly wanted to get a brand, a company that will give massive amount of value to our audience, and that is definitely iSecure Vehicles. They have a wide range of products which are designed to keep your vehicle, your asset, safe and secure. Some of those products are dash cameras, undetected immobilizers, and car tracking systems. Head over to iSecure to look at their products and make sure you say that the Stephen Sully Study podcast sent you there. So, not my words, but I'm just an outsider. Would you slightly label yourself as
not well,
stone cold, a bit heartless, maybe?
I always get told I don't show any emotion. I always get told that, and I kind of realise I don't. But what I always say is I have got it, and I'm still happy, sad, and everything. I feel as I'm no different to anyone else, but I just don't show it. Yeah, but I always say it doesn't mean to say that you don't have it.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Touched on some really things that I'm definitely interested in. But how did you go from doing all of that? And I believe you're a business person that is in the close protection arena still, but you pivoted now into more acting. And I've got down here you was in Green Zone, Sherlock, Holmes, etc. Really, really cool films. How did that all come about?
Years ago, back in 2010, in fact, let's go back a little bit before. When I was working in Iraq private security, there was an older guy there at the time. He worked in the army where we kept all the weapons. And I said to him, because he was quite a bit older than me, I said, what was you doing before you was out here then? He said, I was doing film work on and off. So I said, what's that? Because I'd never heard of it. And he said he was a military advisor for the film Troy. So I thought, that sounds quite good. And he told me all about it. And he gave me a phone number. I put it on a card, threw it in my bag. And I knew I couldn't do anything with it because obviously being away, I wouldn't be able to do it. 5 years on, something like that, when I first moved up to London, I unpacked my bag and that card fell out. And I thought, that's that card. And I rung it up. Anyway, I got an interview with a company in Shepherd's Bush. And they said that the book's not open till next summer. So, we've got your name, but we'll give you a call next year. And then I went in the gym about 3 weeks later and come out as a voicemail on my phone. The days when I could leave my phone in the gym, in the locker rather. And they said, would you go out to Morocco to do a film with Matt Damon? Well, I thought one of my mates winded me up because all the lads knew that I'd put in for this thing anyway, but they told me that it was next year, so I thought someone winded me up, so I googled it all and it was all true. I went for a meeting and within about a week later I was flying out to Morocco to do the Green Zone. So that was my first movie. I played a US Special Forces soldier in that. So that was my first taste of filming and being around it all. And I really enjoyed it, and I thought, this is something I'd like to. I was always looking, all the time I was working, I knew I wasn't going to be a bodyguard and be sort of security person for forever. But I never knew what I wanted to do. So I used to enjoy what I was doing at the time, but I was always on the lookout as well for what I might do next. And that always stuck in my mind. And I've always thought, if you ever want to do something, you just go and do it, which is what I've always done. If it's time to make a change, it might not be now, but at some stage you should pick it up and have a go. And I went to acting school I finished acting school during COVID. I say I finished, never really finished acting school. You always go back and forth. But I was just at screen fighting school only 3 weeks ago, I think. So you're always back in and out of it. But yeah, I went and sort of qualified as an actor, got on Spotlight, and I'm just pursuing that as more of a regular thing. That's one of the reasons why I finished being a bodyguard as well, really.
Yeah, but clearly got a business still in it. So I want to come back to the whole acting side of stuff, but your business now, do you consult for companies or individuals, or do you actually have personnel going out there to be close protection for, politicians, the royals, etc.?
Yeah, it's a mixture. It's a mixture of everything. So we don't just do bodyguards. We do private security in terms of we don't do pubs and clubs or anything like that, but we still do 5-star hotels. We will do private events, sort of high class or celebrity weddings, that sort of stuff. Then obviously there's the bodyguards, residential security for people's houses. But then we've just started branching out into man guarding and doing building sites, because in London there's so much construction at the moment going on. There's quite a call for that.
My dad's company does that.
Do they?
Yeah. They're called First Aid Security.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He does man guarding and stuff, key holding as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's quite a big thing for that. So asset protection, whatever the asset might be, it can literally be anything if it needs it. So we do a whole range of services, really. In terms of advising, if you use our guys, advising comes free anyway, if you know what I mean. That comes as part of it. But yeah, that's pretty much what the lads do now. Have
you ever been attacked yourself, like whilst you're working?
No, not what I would consider an attack anyway.
Okay. You're a big fella. You clearly got a military background, and looking after the likes of Rita Ora, Kendall Jenner, Michael Jackson, etc. You need to know how to handle yourself in the event of it happening. God forbid it does happen, but it could happen every so often. Is there anybody that you would say, or any scenario that you would be afraid, or would you say you're totally fearless?
I'm not fearless, no. But like I said before, with no emotion, you might think I am, but I'm not. There's tons of times I've got myself into a place where you absolutely sort of shit yourself. You're scared to bits. But it's being able to still do what you need to do, still be able to think clearly. And certainly when you're bodyguard, you can't show it. And because imagine you're paying me a lot of money every year to look after and it's all going wrong. If I'm scared, how's that going to make you feel? So exactly. I'm the only person there, but you should look at me, and for that day, I'm the man who should be going, don't worry, it's going to be fine, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, it's no problem. It looks worse than what it really is. But in my head, I'm thinking the same as you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that I get scared all the time. But what's scared? Being scared is only an emotion. Same as laughing. It's just not a nice one, that's all. Laughing, people like it. Being scared, you don't. But it's still only an emotion. You just got to get over it.
Very, very true. So with the whole film career, is that something that you really, really want to get your teeth sunk into and become quite a world famous actor?
Yeah, I think anything in any occupation, you should always want to try and do your best, regardless of what it is. So, yeah, whether it's world famous, I don't know, but I'd like to do the best I certainly can do myself. Yeah, I work quite hard on getting around and meeting the right people and because there is a lot of casting involved, but also it is a lot of sort of who you know as well. You have to be involved, especially for the big films. So a lot of it's in the States for us. The UK film industry is not that big compared to the States. So I have to mix my time up with people in the UK and talking to people out in the States. But yeah, it's just to keep cracking. It's like anything, you crack away at it, you'll get there in the end.
Green Zone, you said Matt Damon. Sherlock Holmes is Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. And then also you've got his sidekick in it, which is
Jude Law.
These are really famous people, and then obviously, on the other film sets, you must have met lots of successful, celebrity, movie stars, Hollywood actors, etc. Who has been the most famous person on the sets that you've met and worked with?
Probably Matt Damon.
What was he like to work with?
Yeah, he was all right. I mean, so when you're at that level, you come in and out for when you're needed. So, like, he was only out there for, I think he showed up for a few days of the first week, and then we didn't see him. He shot off somewhere else again and come back, like 4 weeks in or something. So they're not around every single day. But I'll tell you what I did do, actually. I doubled for Dave Bautista in the movie Final Score.
Right.
And I didn't get to meet him because I was doing all the double work. Basically, I just did what he wasn't there for. But I mean, he's quite up there in terms of Marvel and all that sort of thing, and he does quite a bit. But I never got to meet him, unfortunately. But yeah, probably Matt Damon.
I mean, with all these people that you've looked after and also worked alongside in your businesses, or you know, the fashion and the acting and stuff, have you ever been starstruck? No. I mean, I've never, even when I was a kid, I never had a hero. I never, you know, I don't know what, it's pretty arrogant this is actually, but I've always, when I was younger, if I saw something which I thought could have been a hero, I never used to think I want to be them. I used to think I'm going to do that. You know, I'm going to do that, because it wasn't particularly the person that was the hero, it's what they was doing. What you like normally when you have a hero. So rather than be that person, why not be yourself and do it? Yeah, great.
And that's the way I always looked at it. So no, I didn't growing up. There's only one person, quite a lot of, so I've been in over 60 publications, you know, Vogue, GQ, Elle, all these different types of ones for various different matters. And one of the things a lot of them used to pick up on was the Jason Statham thing. So I've been branded as that quite a few times over the years, which is worse people to look like, I suppose. But I'd like to meet him, and I'd like to work with him, just because of the amount of time I hear his name every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be nice to do something with Jason if I could. But
have you got any big films in the pipeline that you're going to be a part of?
Next year is a couple. I'm not really able to say what they are yet, because first of all, I don't know what order they're going to be running in. But there's going to be two big ones in the UK next year. Or certainly one next year, and then the second one might. Filmmaking's a bit all over the place, so
there was a big strike, wasn't there?
Yeah, we've just finished that now. So that helped. I did have one nice one in the States, which kind of got lost nearly 8 months, I think it was, or something like that in the end.
Jeez.
So I'm hoping next year's going to be a better year for sure than this year, because we missed out quite a bit this year. Yeah. Best thing about it is though, because everyone's striked, it all seems to be all guns blazing now. That everyone's really getting out there and getting back into it properly. So yeah, next year's looking a lot more promising. 2024.
So modelling, men's fashion, ID magazine, Vogue, Joshua's magazine. I mean, these are really cool things. Are you a model?
No, no, not really. I mean, I don't really know how I got in, how that happened. I've never sort of proclaimed to be a model, and never wanted to be a model as such. But I think when I was Bodyguard, I used to get picked up quite a lot working with Bella for what I was wearing and stuff. So I think around that time, that kind of where that came from, where other publications would sort of decide and wanted to do pieces on me about clothing and that sort of thing, what I used to wear. And I always used to get asked the question, did you used to dress for the job and everything else? But I didn't. You know, I've always worn nice clothes, what I consider to be nice anyway. You know, I've always worn decent stuff. So the only difference on that job was you could wear what you wanted, as long as it was within keeping of what you're doing for the day. You could wear what you wanted, and that's why I just got picked up really, because of what I wear. I
mean, maybe bit of a flaw for me, but I should have probably looked at some of the photos that they were referring to. But yeah, they must see you as a bit of a fashion, dare I say it, like guru, in order to write this sort of stuff about you. What type of stuff was you wearing when you were looking after Bella Hadid? So
I think one of the things Vogue put out was Bella Hadid's Bodyguard is the real, the real style of London fashion week or something like that. They put out a big article on it, and all I had on was a bomber jacket, black t-shirt and a pair of jeans. I think I'd put Louis Vuitton trainers on or something like that, but I mean,
pretty much what you've got on now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean if I get where they're coming from. I mean, basically, if you ask anyone, if you didn't say names, you're wearing jeans, shirt, and trainers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but maybe the stuff I was wearing wasn't, you know, what you normally would see with a bodyguard. I don't know, but for me, it was very much normal.
Yeah. Just circulating back when you came into the gallery earlier. I mentioned about, you know, some of the close protection that some of the people have within this building, and I think more and more, certainly in, I reckon in a lot of major cities, westernised cities, it's probably become a lot more rife. Muggings, stabbings, dare I say it, there's shootings and stuff, and there's just hostile kind of environments and situations, and people become a lot more desperate. I mean, when you see things like mortgage rates going up, cost of living going up, pending recession, depressions, you know, people losing their jobs left, right and centre, you are seeing a big gap between people that have and people that have not. And therefore, the people that have not, or feel like they've got no other choice but to go out there and start robbing people in a quite a violent way, is becoming more normal. And it's scary, right? It really is scary. I mean, looting as well. I mean, that's something that's just almost taken off in the last decade. You know, that never used to happen when I was younger, really. But now it just seems like a more commonplace than ever before. What's your take on, like, watch robbing within London? Is it something that the government and the authorities can control, or do you think it's completely out of their control?
No, I think it's gone too far now. It's well out of their control. Well out. And the problem is, there's two things to it. So you got the gap between the rich and the poor now, which is obviously causing more of it. But also, we haven't got the police officers. We just haven't got the police officers anymore. And they keep saying, yes, we have. And they change things around the way they do it to say that we don't need as many as we used to because we do this now. We don't. There's no way, you know, this is why people rob so much now, because they know they can get away with it. They don't. I think we spoke about something earlier. You said someone smashed a car and he just walked off, didn't even run off. It happens all the time now. They're not scared of getting caught by anybody, but they just do it as and when they want, as much as they want. And 99 to get caught, you're going to be very, very, very unlucky, like very unlucky. And just you look at when the police turn up now. If it's even if it's a small thing, you'll still see 3 or 4 police cars, and you'll look at that and you think, "Cool, that must be a big problem. 4 police cars." It's not. It's a small problem, but they're all single crewed. So effectively, there's only 4 police officers turned up. The amount of single crewed police officers you see around London now, you shouldn't be single crewed as a police officer in this country. It's madness. You know, you should double minimum. You should never be single crewed. But all you see, it's all now what happens is, as soon as you're going to a call, another car, it's 2 cars gone straight away, because to make it a normal team, because you're single crewed. So, and I see that every day. So people can't say it's not happening. Oh, that guy was just going to do this. He wasn't. You know, it's fact. It's happening all the time. So unless they rip it to bits and really punch some money, and the other thing is, it's not appealing for people to be police officers anymore. Their money's not great, and the job's getting harder. So the benefits and the money's gone rubbish over the years, the perks of it all, and the job's getting tougher. Well, that's always going to start falling to pieces. That is.
Yeah. So like the risk to the reward.
Well, to reward, yeah. I mean, there's no reward of getting stabbed in the neck, is there? But at the end of the day, you still need something to put. You know, all these people have got families and children, and you got just the want for the job is not enough anymore. Let's put it like that. I think you know, you do jobs like that because you want to do it, which is fine, but it's just not enough. You know, they need more than what they're getting.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they said you're going to get 100 to 200 grand a year, depending on how much experience you've got, how, you know, what status you are within the police force, etc. But there is a chance, a couple of times a year, you could be stabbed or shot at. Are you up for it? And then you can make that call. But if it's a lot less than that, you're like, well, I mean, I'm seeing it every single day on TV that people are being shot at, and they are police officers as well. Some people are being killed, and I don't really have the support behind me that they should be given, and the money isn't that great. What is the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
And look, this is a real kind of dangerous subject for me to raise, because if it's taken in the wrong context, I might be branded something myself. But I was speaking to people in the military. I've actually got a guy who's about to leave the military, and we've been waiting for him to leave in order for him to basically talk about it. But he was saying, in the police force and also in the army, they're bringing on, how can I say it without even sounding like a... They're trying to include other types of individuals, transgender, gay, lesbian, and it's not because of their strengths. It was more just to tick a couple of boxes to say the army or the police force have actually brought this demographic on. And again, listen, I don't care your religion, your race, your gender, your sex. None of that matters. What matters is about your skill set, your mindset, your attitude towards something. But don't just hire somebody because it ticks one of your boxes. And he said, this is where the police force and the army is going. It's not because of their skill set. It's more about ticking boxes. How true is that, Simon?
Yeah, 100%. One of the biggest problems of it is political correctness, for one. But also, they can't get the people to join. And when you can't get people to join, obviously you can flower it up and make it all sound all great to try and get people in that way. But that's got a shelf life on it. So then, what do you do after that? Well, you have to lower the criteria of what you need for people to get in. So certainly in the military now, I think you can be a reservist up until the age of 58, maybe 55, something like that. I don't know exactly. So going back quite a long way, but I think once you got to, for the regular army, it might have even been 32 or something, and that was it. I can't remember. It might have been less if you go back to the sort of 80s. But all the category of, fitness tests, that's all come down now. That's all done on age. Now, when you was in the army, as time went on, you did get slightly more time for your age, but the joining stage, everyone had to do the same timings. Each regiment had its different timings normally, or some were similar, but you had to have sort of a young lad's timing. Now you can, because they've changed the age, you can't expect a 55-year-old to go and join the RAF regiment, a reserve or whatever, and do a 9.5 minute mile and a half. Do you know what I mean? So they've had to change all that. So that's where it all starts from. And you can see it with police officers now, particularly. It's not just, it's the PlayStation generation's come up now as well. People's life skills aren't quite what they used to be for one reason or another, and that's all filtering into the police. And there's probably a lot of people in the police force now that they wouldn't have taken as little as 5 or 10 years ago, which they're having to now because they're so on demand and they can't get people to join.
Yeah, I mean, like, if people are defending your country and defending your local area, whether we're talking about the police force or any kind of special forces or any of these organisations, you would want. I know who I want to protect. Like if my house was being robbed, for example, or there was a threat, my wife and kids, I know who I want. I know who I want straight away. And dare I say it, I want absolutely focused, hard blokes who are educated. They're fit, they're strong, they're diligent, they're aware, they're the whole package. Yeah. I don't want someone that is slightly fit, slightly got bottle, slightly hard. I want somebody that is absolute 10 out of 10. They're on the job. And unfortunately, it feels like it's just all about inclusion now. Let's just bring people in because politically correct, ticking boxes. Maybe they're struggling to find these 10 out of 10 type of individuals, and they're just lowering their own standards now in order just to make up the numbers. But the problem with that is then the culture starts to die off. Yeah. And then when you're being direct to someone, they're like, oh, you're hurting my feelings, you're triggering me, and then you just get all this snowflakey type stuff. It's a bit of a weird cycle that this economy is in, don't you think?
It is. If you go to somewhere like France, Germany, Spain, even go out to like maybe Norway, you look at their police officers, pretty much everyone, if not all of them, they look like, half of them look better than some of their soldiers. Not forget about the police officers, they're not all men, there's some are female as well, but they're all strong, physically fit, they've got all the right kit and equipment you'd expect to see on a police officer for a capital city. They got batons, constant. They use them on you as well. When you see them, you don't want to do anything wrong. You don't want to get caught by them. When you see police here, I think in the UK now, it's just a police officer.
Well, I mean, you see it on social media, like you'll have predominantly young guys, and I'm not saying they're totally in the wrong, because there are times when the police will aggravate young groups of young guys, and wrongly. But then the other side is true, where they will take the mick and piss out of a police officer because it's a way of flexing their muscles, it's a way of showing off, maybe trying to get a bird, or she's trying to get a bloke and she's just trying to show off how strong she is or whatever, and they're doing it for social media credit, right? But in some countries, the moment you raise your voice to a police officer like that, you're being slapped down straight away. Yeah. There is none of that. There is no disrespect. Yeah. It's almost like if you disrespect the military, you're disrespecting the government or disrespecting the royals. I mean, you try and pull that move in the UAE to a Dubai police officer, you are going to know about yourself very, very quickly. Yeah. And I think we've lost that over here.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's never been as harsh as that in this country anyway. But what we did have was we had a lot more respect for police officers, but more so because people were more worried about. They don't care about it anymore. They don't care what they can do, and for whatever reason, I don't know why this is, but people don't seem to care so much about going to prison anymore. Neither. Prison doesn't seem to be such a big thing for people. I can think of nothing worse myself, but it's a changing world. But the problem with it is I don't believe the authorities aren't changing enough with it.
Yeah, agreed. Your next couple of projects down the line, Simon, to round off like this podcast and to let the audience know what you're going to do next. There's some big films in the pipeline, as you alluded to. You obviously got your businesses, you got your clothing brand. What can people look forward to, or what can you be promoting right now over the next couple of months, over the next few years, Simon?
Yeah, so probably the next few years is a clothing brand, Simon Newton London. That's only just started, so we're sort of getting that out there. That's doing quite well at the moment. And probably films next year. The thing is with films next year, if we film anything next year, you won't see it until 2025. So it might look like I've not done a lot next year, although actually I could have done a lot, But I've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up next year. 24 and 25, I've got a lot. You should see a lot more of me.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. When I'm rich and famous and successful, and all that other stuff, perhaps there will be a call from me to you saying I need some close protection, but until that moment in time, I really, really appreciate your time today, mate, and sharing some of your story and your journey. I always ask my guests this last question. I came up with my own mantra, a bit like how Rob Moore asked his guests about disruptors, What does disruptive mean to you? Well, my catchphrase or my mantra or incantation is be happy, never content. So if I were to ask Simon Newton, what is your interpretation of be happy, never content?
Always achieving, because as soon as you've achieved, you're not happy anymore. The happiness is going towards doing something. If you always wanted £1 million and I gave you £1 million, where's the want? The want's gone. So I think you'll be surprised at how many people actually are unhappy when they've achieved what they've been trying to achieve for the last 10 years. Yeah. Because 10 years of happiness trying to achieve it.
Agreed. Simon, thank you very much for your time. Be happy, never content. Make sure you're following this man. And once again, really, really appreciate today's conversation, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Guys, before we end this episode, I have to give one more mention to this week's sponsors, iSecure Vehicles. Now, I've already mentioned their products. They are the very best in what they do. They have a wide range of different services and different systems to protect your asset and your vehicle. Head over to their website to find out a bit more. Thanks for watching this week's episode. There's going to be some more exciting guests, some big names, and some really, really juicy episodes.